Well, welcome everybody. So this is the RCVS Workforce Action Plan Ambitions Revisited series, and we are in ambition number 6. And we're going to be talking today about an attractive career for everyone, including those who have left. So I'm Louise Allen. I am going to be chairing this session today. So a little bit of housekeeping to start with. If you've remembered your Zoom etiquette. If you haven't, if you can, we are going to be recording this, so I hope that's okay with everybody. If you can stay on mute while you have while the session's going. We're going to put resources in the chat. I think we're going to put questions in the chat as well. So if you've got any questions, then put them in the chat, and there's going to be time at the end for questions as well. So I've got a fabulous panel with me here today, and we've got their panel of stakeholders to share their thoughts and experiences on this topic. And I've chatted to them beforehand. They've got a lot of really interesting things to say. So we're going to go through. I'm going to introduce myself to start with. So some of you might know me, some of you might not. So I'm Louise Allen. I'm head vet at the Shelter Medicine Programme at the RVC. So I do work with kittens quite a lot at the moment, and work at animal shelters. I have a fantastic role really. I am also part of the RCVS Council, which is why I got asked onto this today, I think. Now let me introduce my panel, and I'm going to get them to give them a very short intro on why they're excited to be here today. So can I maybe start with Tim to start with?
Thanks, Louise. Tim Parkin, Chair of RCVS Education Committee, Junior Vice President of the Royal College, also Head of School at Bristol Veterinary School. And I think reflecting on what I'd like to say here is thinking about what I say to graduates at admissions day when they're admitted to Royal College, and ensuring that they recognise that their degree is their own degree to do what they want with. And actually, I deliberately tell them not to look at their parents who may be expecting them to go into clinic, and actually to think about what they want to do and actually potentially take a risk. I myself, I never went into clinics. I went to PhD and stayed in research, but it works in the opposite way as well. And I always ask students to keep in touch and think about what they're going to do with their veterinary degree and recognise quite how flexible it is. And actually, they may spend time out of clinics and may then want to come back into clinics, and that sort of thing. So I try and encourage them to take the risk, and when the opportunity arises, do something different with their degree. And that might include coming back into clinics, I would say as well. Thanks, Louise.
Thank you. And then I think, yes, Tash has put in there, if you've got any questions, do pop them in the chat. We've got some of the team from the RCVS here. So I've got Tash, Deborah, and Karad joining us as well today. Right, Kit, tell me why you're excited to be here.
Thanks, Louise. So I'm Kit Sturgis. I'm a clinician and have been qualified for 40 years, but I've had quite a squiggly career. And when I qualified, I was going to be an equine lameness person. And it became clear to me over time that I really didn't enjoy it and wasn't particularly good at it, along with cattle medicine. And that's the one thing that I've really learned through my career, that if you want a fulfilling, or for me, if I want a fulfilling job, I need to really believe in it and feel that I recognize that the things that I'm good at and the things that I'm not good at. And I guess for many of us who have been quite high achievers, we feel we should be good at everything. And it's hard sometimes to admit that actually you're really not good at something. And they don't give me sharp cutting instruments anymore because I'm not a surgeon. So that's a little bit of me. I've done many other things. I have what people would describe as a portfolio career now. So I do a lot of charity work, committee work, and some clinical work. So that really, is great, floats my boat, and I really enjoy it. The other angle is my wife is a vet as well, and she had a career break through health issues and having children, and we're older parents and we didn't have any sort of parental support, so we had to do it all on our own. And she did try to come back, and eventually she just found it had got too difficult and decided not to come back. And that's before all the wonderful resources that have recently been created are. So we have a little bit of personal experience of how hard it is after a break to come back, and the challenges that presents.
you, Kit. I'm going to move on to Sally next, who I have to say has made me feel quite inadequate in the past when I've heard what she's been up to. So, Sally, give us the highlights. Give us the
I'll try and
highlights.
cut it short.
That's fine.
So I qualified as a nurse in 1987 with the Little Green Book. And then I became a head nurse, then a practice manager. Then I had 7 years out of nursing. I became a foster carer for challenging children. Then I had 3 years with my own delicatessen, selling my own homemade food and British cheeses. Then I came back to nursing. I was a veterinary nurse, then I became a head nurse, then I became a nurse clinical manager, then a practice manager for a veterinary referral hospital. Then I went to work for the College of Animal Welfare as an IQA. And then recently, at the age of 58, I've come back full circle to nursing. And so yeah, I've had a break, and I've had I just want to be I will just want the simple life now, really. I've got pressures at home, I've got children, I've got grandchild, I've got aging parents. So I know the pressures of working and having outside pressures with family and supporting them. So yeah.
That's it. Thank you, Sally. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's great. Right, Lauren, another inspirational person. Tell us, tell us a little bit about you as well, please, Lauren.
Yes, I mean, I'm almost a professional returner at this stage in my career. So I mean, I lived abroad for a bit early in my career, moved back to a first opinion position, having had 6 months out. I had maternity leave and came back to a technical position, so still in an industry role, salaried, but coming back to do something different. And then I left the profession entirely, and then came back and set up my own business in the veterinary space. So I'm like tick, 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 tick on the leaving and returning box in and out all over the place. I'm really passionate about talking about it because on none of those three occasions did it feel easy. And on all times when I kind of gathered my courage and went for it, it was never as bad as I thought it was going to be. But there's always strategies to make it easier. And any way that I can help anyone with any of those challenges, I am here for it.
Fantastic, thank you. So that's our fabulous panel for today. So we'd love to find out a bit about you as well, who have joined us here today. And we have got a lovely Slido poll if you're used to doing those. If not, I think Debbie's going to put that up for us to have a little look at. There are, I believe, 3 questions, then there'll be a 4th one at the end. So if you can add any comments on this. How do we join? So we join on Slido, so onto your mobile phone or on your laptop if you can, and put that hashtag number in. Oh, see, I'm not down with the kids, am I? That's great. Well done. Hearing a little bit more about everybody, that's great. Feel free to add anything in the chat box as well if you're struggling to do the Slido. Considering my options, I'm liking that. And Debbie, will you be able to tell us when a fair number of people have voted? None of these options, that's fine, Jenny.
I can move it on to the next slide.
Yeah, let's go. Let's keep moving. Let's move on to the next slide. So what do you love about working in the veterinary sector? So one of the other reasons I'm here today is that I've just employed my vet who is returning after 15 years out of practice and has just come back to the animal shelter that I'm working at. And so it's been really interesting seeing that return to work through her eyes. what do you love about working in the veterinary sector? I have to say the thing that she said she really liked is that she can now describe her job title a lot quicker again in parties or in wherever she is. She said for her it was about having her professional identity back again. She said people have stopped blanking out when she described her job. So, yeah, I love that working with people is so high up on the list actually, because I think a lot of, I'll talk to Tim about this later, but I don't think a lot of our graduates maybe go into it thinking about working with people, but it's such a huge part of it, working with animals, helping people, community, love that. Helping others, it matters, sense of purpose. Yeah, I have to say that sense of purpose is a big one for me. Making a difference. It does feel like you're getting up in the morning and making a difference. Working in science, I think that's a great thing. Teamwork. Yeah, I think that's the other thing. I haven't tried working in a one-man practice before. I've always worked in a team and I do love going in and seeing people in the morning who've got the same sort of sense of purpose as me, making an impact, it matters. Passion that the vets and nurses have. Yeah, love all that.
Has everybody
That's
participated?
great. Thank you very much, everybody. And again, if anybody wants to add anything in the chat, we've put we're going to add resources to the chat as we go along as well. So do feel free to. You'll be able to look back at those another day as well. And then final question, have we, Debbie?
I think that's for the end of the session.
Fantastic, right? That's great. So let's move on then to have a bit more of a chat with our panel and dig into this a bit better. So my first question to the panel is, how do you make the career attractive to people who have left it? And what are we going to do maybe with the really talking to Tim as well with the younger members of the profession, sort of trying to make sure that people feel that they can maybe stay in the profession for longer. But yeah, do you want to, Lauren? You were last to start with. How do you think we can make the career more attractive? So why did you come back? What made you leave, and why did you return?
Well, what made me leave was I think I was quite disillusioned about what I wanted. I felt a bit lost. I tried various different careers. I've been in tech, I've been in clinical content writing at Vets for Pets head office. I'd done a variety of different first opinion practices. So kind of threw my toys out the pram and decided it must be the profession that was the problem rather than me. Left and discovered that all of those problems exist in jobs all over the place. And actually the problem was probably me in the end, actually. And then the real crunch point came was I was the commercial director of a healthcare mattress firm, and we were turning over about 23 million. So it was a big deal. Someone I didn't know asked me at a networking event, what's your job? I said, well, I'm a vet, but now I sell mattresses. And how long I went reflected on that? How long am I going to spend saying I'm a vet, but as just 10 years, 20 years? Actually, what that really showed me was that I think when you're in the profession, it's really hard to actually just to really leave. You always end up with that I'm a this, but now I. And it was that really dragged me back. And this kind of realization that the grass isn't greener. There are challenges in all of these professions and learnings, and be able to bring them back is really cool. So that was me.
And so how do you think we can make this career more attractive then, Lauren? So second part of that question really. So what do you think we can do as a profession to say, look, this is a good career, come back to it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing we're not really very good at is kind of shouting about what we need to those people who've gone. You think about, let's take Australia, right? Australia's well known for being like, right, come in because we need these people who can do this. We need people who are this, and we need people who are this. And we want to create a really great environment for you to, if you've got all those things. And I think us going out there and say, actually, we're looking for people with great communication skills. We're looking, you might have, maybe you didn't have that when you were here before, but now you probably do. You've kept communicating, that hasn't left. And the skill set that you might feel that you're missing is it's actually negligible. It might be a couple of new drugs, some updated. You might used to have known the Metacam drug dose off the top of your head, and you don't anymore.
Yeah.
I think we're going to get over that, right? For your years of experience and kind of trying to communicate that actually that what you don't know is infinitesimal, really, compared to the wealth of experience you're bringing back in.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Kit, do you want to jump in on that actually? Because I know you were talking about your wife's sort of return and failure to return. Well, not failure, but opted not to. How do you think we could have made this career more attractive? What were the barriers, do you think, to her returning?
Um, I think there was no structure. So I think vets generally like a plan, and vet nurses too. I think those are the sort of people we are, and just to sort of have this, I want to return, but how do I do it? I think that was really difficult, and she went to some local practices and did a bit of work, but there wasn't anybody sort of really supporting her to do that. And I think to Lauren's point, people tend to overthink the things they don't know and underthink what they really do know. And the things that are rusty, yes, they're going to take time to come back. My wife had been out for like 16 years, so a long time, but they do come back. And I guess it's also probably accepting that you're a different person from when you left. So what you might do now may not be exactly the same as you could do when you left. So I think those are the things. It's trying to build that structure of how you actually do it. Then for some people, and I think definitely for my wife, it was she. She's quite a process person. It's the nuts and bolts of how it all fits together. And I think the resources now facilitate that. And just to sort of Lauren's point, my impression is that most people who leave the profession are sad to leave because they've failed to find their happy place in the profession. And for me, that comes back to really understanding what you like. And again, as Lauren said, it's being honest with yourself rather than saying, oh, it must be the profession or the corporates or the Royal College or whatever it is. That's probably not the issue. The issue is that you haven't perhaps been as honest with yourself as you might be about what the things are that really get you up in the morning.
Yeah. And I think that's a really interesting point, Kit. And I think thinking about the flip side, why have you kept in the profession for this long? And I think that squiggly career, that portfolio career idea, how do you think how do you think you've done that? What has been your techniques or tips for navigating that, would you say?
It's a good and a bad thing, and it does come bite me at times, but I say yes. When people ask me if I'm interested in doing something, I tend to say yes. Now, sometimes that leads to overload, and there have definitely been times in my career where I've been really close to compassion fatigue and just not managing. But there have been some great opportunities when people said, "Are you interested in that?" And I think, actually, yes. And so now, to what your career is, Louise, I'm chair of trustees of a large animal charity, and really in governance and finance and things that I'd never thought I was particularly interested in, but doing that for the impact that it has on cats, brilliant. So, I think being confident in yourself enough when somebody asks you something that you may not have done before to say yes, if it's something that you feel actually that could be really interesting, really help me. Sometimes people ask me for sort of opinions on something. I think I know nothing about that, but actually really enjoyed going out and finding out about it and keeping engaged. That's, I think, a big thing for me.
Lovely. Thank you, Kit. That's great. I'm going to move on to Sally then. So, how do you think, I mean, what were your reasons for coming back, Sally? You talked a little bit about it before, but how do you think we can make the veterinary nursing career attractive to people who've left? How can we improve what we're doing?
I think flexibility is important
Right.
from practices, and also understanding that when you are coming back and you're a little bit older, that you have medical conditions that you need adjustments for. It's not a failure to have a medical condition, but it just needs understanding in practice. I have a long-term medical condition, which means that I get vertigo every other day. So by explaining to the practice what my needs are, I need structure and I need routine. I work Monday to Thursday, 9 till 5. And, it's really important for me because when I left nursing before to go into different roles, I had burnout, I had compassion fatigue, and COVID and not being furloughed and being the only nurse doing practice management and nursing and reception finished me off. And COVID was just one of those things that, I didn't find difficult at the time, but after COVID and going back into practice, I thought, no, I don't want to see another client. I don't want to see another pet. So I went into management side, which has its own challenges. And now, I'm getting to the age, I'm 58. I want to go down into retirement at 67, doing a job I love again. And that's why I've come back to clinical nursing. And I'm now in a small practice where I'm the only nurse. And there's one vet and one receptionist, two receptionists and one kennel assistant. But it means that I can go back to my basics. I was worried about going back to nursing because of all the fancy equipment that's out there now, which I was really daunted by. I think, oh my gosh, I've got to learn all of these things again. But in fact, because he's only just set up by himself, he hasn't got the money for all the fancy equipment. So I can go right back to basics, to what I learned as a nurse on how to monitor anesthetics. And yes, we'll get there. We'll sort of learn together. But yeah, I'm just really enjoying the flexibility of doing hours that suit me. And, if I do any overtime, which there's a little bit covering other people, if I do overtime, I can take it off in time, which time is more important to me now. Time being at home, time, if my parents need support, I can just take an hour off and he lets me go an hour early. And then, I might make it up by doing a little bit of overtime when someone else is on holiday. So I think flexibility and adjustments for any medical conditions you have is, the key to me coming back into clinical practice.
Yeah. That's great. And I think we've just put in the chat actually about the Let's Talk adjustment campaign by the RCVS, because I think this, as you say, is an important barrier for some people. And interestingly, looking at my team now, I think I'm the only one that works full time. Everybody else is working part time, not just for childcare or health reasons, but some of it is for mental health, saying that I can work 4 days a week in this profession, but I can't work 5. I need some time to myself to manage that. Yeah,
definitely.
Kit, you're an employer. How do you find, is it easy? Are you finding that you're having to give increased flexibility to team members now? Or I know it can be quite, challenging as an employer, but is it something that you've been looking into?
So to be clear, I only employ me.
That's fine.
And
Yep.
I'm as flexible as I can be to myself.
Yeah,
But
yes,
I did set up a referral practice and was an employer of 60 people. And certainly there are competing issues for practices because you have to maintain a certain level of cover. And how do you manage that with reasonable adjustments for people's medical health, but also their mental health, the number of days they want to work? How do you build systems in because to ensure you have good handover of cases because people aren't there full time? Those things I think then become really important. And the one thing that really struck me was trying to ensure the team understood that it was for the team's benefit to do this well, rather than somebody was getting a bit of a favour because they had shorter hours or school time or whatever, which I felt really started to create some resentment amongst some staff who felt, well, everyone else is getting something, why aren't I being given something, rather than understanding that this was building a team that worked rather than individual favours.
Yeah, that's what I think is really important to really have this out in the open and start talking about it. Tim, yeah, sorry, I hadn't forgotten about you, don't you worry. So we were talking about how do you make the career attractive, but do you want to jump in on the flexibility of
Yeah,
working
yeah, I was. I mean,
first before
we have.
before we go to other things? Yeah.
Yeah, we have a couple of hundred staff at the vet school, obviously, and then
Yeah.
Langford Vets has, a couple of hundred plus individuals, and more of them clearly want to work flexibly. The routine in Langford Vets would be sort of 8 till 6, 4 days a week, doing compressed hours. I think the one thing that I wanted to comment on that is that we now try, where as best we can, to match the student experience when they're on a clinical rotation to the experience of the practitioner. So if they go to a practice for a rotation where actually the routine is for the vet to be doing 4 days a week, 8 till 6, that's what the student will do. And I think it's really, really valuable because our student body is so different to what it was 5, 10, 15 years ago. We have so many more individuals who come with other calls on their time. And I think the pressure that most feel in the veterinary profession is that you are doing your job, but you've got so many other things to do in your life. And actually, if you don't have the time, if your job is all consuming and you don't have the time to do everything else that you want to do, that you may need to do, that's, I think, where I see a lot of issues come in. And, we are all so much more busy than we ever used to be, whether that be within work or out of work. And actually, you have to then decide that actually what is more important, life or job. And you need to get that proper work-life balance. And I think I think the profession is getting better at recognizing that, but I still would say that I still have employers in clinical practice who come to me and say, it's really disappointing that the first question a new grad might ask is, I don't want to do out of hours. What's your on-call rota? I can only do 4 days a week. So there is this mismatch in what graduates might expect, but also what some employers might still be demanding. And I think it's important to have that conversation and recognize that the graduates that we're taking in now are very different. And we are deliberately, trying to get a group of individuals who leave university who are much more reflective of the society that they are likely to be serving in the future. And that can only be a good thing, because then I think surely they will stay in the profession, in clinical work or whatever they happen to do, much, much longer.
Yeah, and that was the other question I was going to put to you, Tim. A slightly different spin on the question I've asked others is not how do we make the career more attractive to people who have left, how we are preparing our students to really make sure that they're aware of the different types of roles. Because as we see with Lauren, actually, there's a number of different roles that we can be doing in this profession. So is there anything more, do you think, that the vet schools can be doing to prepare our students to go into the realities of the profession today?
Well, I mean, the career, everyone on the call probably has either been a vet nurse or a vet student, knowing that it's a pretty heavy program. There's an enormous curriculum. We are accredited, many vet schools are accredited by up to 3 accreditors, having to sort of meet multiple challenges. So it's forever the case, trying to add something to curricula that is already overflowing is really, really difficult. But we do, try to have as many. We engage with the Royal College. We get our students talking to the Royal College, and the Royal College comes and talks about the different roles of the profession. We deliberately talk about that at admission ceremonies. We have a professional track that runs through the whole programs, and throughout that, we make sure that our students recognise the broad range of roles they can take with their veterinary degree, and it's really, really important, their veterinary nursing degree, and it's really, really important that we push that as much as possible. And I think the opportunities that are available in 3rd, 4th, 5th year through a variety of EMS is really, really critical, and being as flexible as we can so that students can get that flavour of what it might be like to go and work in an office in DEFRA or whatever happens to be. And I was literally 2 days ago, I went to go and speak to the 49 students who are now qualified OVs from Bristol, final year students who are doing the OV programme. And I said, look, I just say, we talk about you guys a lot because, you're really critical. And one of them happened to be my TT. They emailed me straight afterwards and said, can I have a quick meeting? This person is now deliberately, they're not going to clinic. They don't want to do that. They've decided that's not what they want to do, but they are seeking many, many different roles, and actually allowing them to think in that way is really, really important, so that they can genuinely be brave enough and not feel that there's any shame in doing something different with your veterinary degree. And, I love what Lauren says about I'm a vet, but, we all, I think, as soon as you get MRCVS, you're forever going to call yourself a vet, whatever you end up doing, because it's so much part of you, isn't it? That's what's so good about it.
Yeah. But really interesting from comment from Rob in the chat here. So work across society increasingly seen as a means to support life outside of work rather than the other way around. This is really impactful for roles traditionally seen as vocational, as the vocational concept of work is increasingly being rejected. Yeah, I think that's a great comment. Right, so let's move you on, panel. I've got another question for you. So how can we help improve the veterinary profession's workforce situation? So how can we support those who want to return? So Sally, do you want to start me off on this? You've said about flexibility of working.
Yeah.
What else would have, what else could have helped you? Is there anything else that you can think of to improve the workforce situation?
I think it's important to be honest with what you like and what you dislike, because there are a variety of roles out there. I used to work with a vet who couldn't stand seeing clients. So she used to come in and do 5 days a week just operating. So I think the traditional role of vets and nurses is blurred now in practice, especially, I think, since COVID, because when you come back the last few years, if you want to only do consulting, then be upfront and say it, because there may well be a consulting role out there, especially with, the recruitment of vets and nurses being quite hard these days. You can actually say, I only want to work this many hours or this shift or that shift, and I only want to do this and I only want to do that. So I think employers, when I was a manager, I think as a manager in a large practice, you have to look at maybe job sharing. So if a vet or a nurse wants to come back for 20 hours a week, and you've got another one who wants to come back for 20 hours a week, that makes a full-time equivalent person. So I think it's a matter of employers recognizing that to solve the recruitment crisis in both vets and nurses, you need to be flexible in what you are offering. And also it needs to be, from the other side, honesty in what you want from your job. And there's nothing wrong with aiming high and then compromising as you get the offers in. So I think that's really important, is to be honest on both sides.
Sally, that's great. How do you? I think for me, it's having the confidence to do that as well. How did you have a mentor, Sally, that helped you? What was? Because I think, sitting at home, there might be somebody sitting at home thinking, I'd love to do that, but I'm not sure I've got the confidence to push myself out there like that. What advice would you give to somebody who's maybe struggling with that confidence?
I think I did have a lack of confidence coming back to nursing, definitely. But when I looked at other jobs, on the recruitment sites in other professions, actually nursing now is very well paid for what I was looking at online. I mean, I was happy to go and work in a supermarket, but the money, minimum wage, compared to what I was getting in nursing, made me come back to nursing and just gave me that little bit of extra push to say, right, well, what do I want? Okay, so my contacts within the veterinary industry, I sort of put it out there that I was thinking of coming back to nursing. And then it just so happened that, somebody who I knew from many years ago who was setting up by himself said, well, come and work for me. So and since then, I've actually grown in confidence. Yes, I was very reluctant to begin with. And, the kennel assistant was teaching me things, but I went into practice saying, look, I've got a very rusty knowledge.
Yeah.
So please bear with me and I will learn from you. And then maybe I can teach you something. And we have this, this sort of unwritten agreement that we are equal and we can teach each other things. Yeah. So I think you can be, you don't have to go in there with the impression that people think you know everything, because none of us know everything. We just have to refresh our knowledge sometimes.
Yeah, no, that's great. Lauren, from you, how do you think people can, get the confidence to go back? Any tips you'd give to sort of try and get people thinking about going back into the workforce again?
Yeah, 100%. So I think about when we talk about maternity and things, we always talk about kit days, don't we? Keep in touch days. So when you're on your roll back to going back to work, come in and do a couple of days, see what it's all about, catch up on whatever, sit and read a vet times with a cup of tea on your lunch break rather than running around doing nappies or whatever. And I think it's not enough, but it's a good thing that we do for especially maternity leaves. What we're not good at is keeping in touch with people who have, like I did, when I was off making mattresses for 5 years, I had very little contact with the veterinary profession at that time. I think where we can really help is trying to help people keep in touch days, things that how can we encourage people to still come to London Vet Show for a day? You don't have to be working in veterinary practice. Come meet up with your old guys from university, have a mosey round, listen to a couple of lectures. And I think the more that people get re-immersed and they come and you think, I went to that OA lecture and actually, all right, Librella's been invented, but I don't know what, actually fundamentally all that's the same. Or actually there's a confidence in that, isn't there? And also a kind of as Sally was saying, when you start connecting with people, suddenly someone says, oh, you know what, you'd be great for this job. Yeah. We're going to hoik you back in because you'd actually be brilliant at this. And sometimes those conversations are much more fruitful than trawling job sites, which can feel, I think, very anxiety inducing, and especially for women who always have to meet every criteria on the jobs thing, don't we? We're known for that, as that can feel like a real thing. But actually, if some mate you've known for 10 years goes, come on, come and join my practice, please, because they've spotted you at BVA Live or whatever, that is completely different. So I think, how do we keep in touch kind of days or experiences for people who've left? I think that would be a fantastic thing to do.
Yeah, I love that, Lauren. Love that. I'll go Tim, then Kit. Tim, what do you think? Have you got an idea for fixing the workforce situation? And how would you support somebody who wants to return to work? I don't know if you've had this situation at uni or.
Well, we have. I mean, I can talk from our particular situation, and what we have a number of different. I think looking at flexibility of roles, and within the university, for example, at Bristol, we have language vets who see the cases, but we now employ a vast range of very experienced primary care practitioners who come in. They don't want to be seeing cases anymore, but they are there now to be that intermediary between the clinicians who are seeing lots of cases in LV, and the student, and they're clinical demonstrators essentially. They don't see their own cases, but they work in the hospital, and they are absolutely adored by the students because they have so much experience about what it means to be like in first opinion practice. So actually trying to understand that and looking for those niche roles that may take the pressure off from actually seeing cases, but actually understanding that you can do a lot of other things with your veterinary degree that might actually be great for the next student body, the next group of professionals coming through, is one thing I would recommend. Think about going. You don't have to be an academic to be working in academia anymore. I would say out of the 15 or 20 veterinary clinical demonstrators we have, maybe a few of them will have certificates, but they don't have master's degrees, they don't have PhDs, so they've done limited research. But there's enormous amount of opportunity for them in that sort of role. And, we genuinely get inundated with applications for those roles every time we put them out. They're a fantastic opportunity for people to continue to be connected to clinic. And many of them, they do a morning of locuming a week just to keep up with their own sort of clinical skills and that sort of thing, and to keep a little bit up to date. But, there are so many different opportunities out there. I think it's really, really important. I just say something about Lauren's comment about getting people back into going to veterinary congresses and that sort of thing. I wonder whether there's an opportunity here for having a particular registration stream for those who are out of the profession, and actually saying a returner stream that is a fee that is lower than the veterinary fee, just to genuinely push those people back, pull them back in. I think it's a great idea. And you could almost have a stream of the session, a registration fee that's dedicated for them, but a stream of the session that is dedicated to that particular aspect of the role. Is a great idea.
Love it, love it. And then finally on to Kit. So improving the veterinary profession's workforce situation, Kit, how are you going to fix it?
I think it's about showing that variety of role that's available, because my experience in cats protection, for example, rehoming cats, we get people come in and say, I want a ginger cat. And our approach now is to get the right cat for the right person. And I think there's a lot to be said for getting the right vet in, and the right vet nurse in the right job. So I think it's having that flexibility and getting people to understand that flexibility exists. And coming back to Sally's point, it is a negotiation. So there is that bit of I want this, I want that. But I think the one thing that I would really strongly say to people who are coming back is just take a moment and think about all the skills that you have developed. So you can say, I want this, but I can manage 5 children, get them off to school, give them lunches. That is an absolutely amazing skill, and could really benefit practices in terms of their workflow, how things can be managed. Or else I've done a job where I've got some really good financial skills, or I've had a lot of client relations management that, everybody hates the letter that comes in saying, I brought my dog to your clinic, 2 days ago and I'm not happy. Maybe that's an area that person can really take on, because they have the empathy and the experience to respond to that letter appropriately, and perhaps less anxious about it than maybe somebody who's really busy in clinics and has put that off for 2 weeks, and the client's just got more angry. So I think there is that element too of really sitting yourself down and saying, well, what skills have I developed in my time of doing something else, or becoming a parent, or whatever? Because those are all really good transferable skills into practice, because as the Slido really highlighted, a vast amount of what we all do is working with people. And the skills that you develop in doing all these other roles is usually people skills, which are so valuable to practice. So recognizing that there is a huge plethora of roles, and there is a role somewhere that will suit you. And then when you go for it, as Sally says, asking for the things you want, but also being clear about the things you can offer, so that negotiation is a two-way street, so that yes, they may have somebody who doesn't work quite as many hours, but the value they get from their life experience is huge.
Thank you, Kit. That's great. And looking at my experience with my vet, who, as I say, had 15 years out of practice, actually came in, completely smashed the interview, but just wasn't expecting to get the job, cried when she got the job, just so emotional when she got the job. So I have to say, I found it really exciting to have somebody sort of come along and who was coming back into the profession, and being able to support them has been a real privilege, to be fair. So we're going to move on now to Charlotte Rodier is going to give us a little bit of the nuts and bolts of what it actually looks like to return to practice. There is a slightly sort of change. You can't just sign back onto the register again. There is now more of a formalised support system to getting back onto the register to help people returning to vet practice. And Charlotte's going to give us a little bit of a talk through how the RCVS is supporting that. So over to you, Charlotte, if that's okay.
Hello. Yeah, thank you so much for having me today. So I'm just going to share my screen and just show you a couple of the courses that we offer on the RCVS Academy. So just to introduce myself, I'm Charlotte Rodier. I'm the digital learning content writer at the RCVS Academy. I'm also an RVN as well. So I'm just going to share my screen, and then I can just walk you through. Don't know, Louise, if I need to be given permission for this.
I would have a word with, is Deborah able to help you out with that one? They don't let me involved with any of the tech stuff. I'm not very sure.
That's
Just be
fine.
able to, you should be able to share. Can you see the share button?
Yeah, it says one participant can share at a time. Should I just select that one?
I've just changed that. You should be able to now.
Okay, let's have a look.
It's because I'm used to Teams now, not Zoom, Charlotte.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
I know,
yeah.
I'm the same. Sorry.
Yeah.
So, yeah, here we go. This should be working now.
Well
Thank
done.
you.
That's looking good.
Right, can everyone see?
Yeah.
Okay. So hopefully everyone's familiar with the RCVS Academy. If you're not, feel free to ask any questions. So this is the landing page. So if you just log in, you can log in using your My Account details. Again, if you've forgotten any of those, then just give us a shout and we can help get you in. So the Academy now has 2 courses to support vets and nurses returning to clinical practice after a break. So you'll find them in the career support category. So I'll go to Nurse Return first because that's the first course that we did. Nurse Return, this was launched last October, so it was quite good timing. We went to BVNA Congress with this kind of under our belt, so we could sort of let everyone know about it. As I said, launched last October. It's been developed with the RCVS VM Futures project lead, Jill McDonald. It's a 5-hour course. And it's split into 6 modules, but these can be done at learner's own pace. They can log in, kind of do a module, come back, do another one. You don't have to do the whole lot all in one go. So it's, you know, you can do it as and when suits you. What we've done with this Nurse Return course, obviously the aim of it is just to provide support and guidance to veterinary nurses returning to clinical practice after a break. And what it does as well is it incorporates the PSP, so the period of supervised practice. It's kind of interwoven throughout the course. Should nurses need to do that, so if they've been off the register for a period of 5 years or more, and it's mandatory for them to do their PSP, this course can help support them through that process. So throughout the course, we've got these pink boxes for PSP nurses. So that's really helpful actually, because obviously there's quite a few bits of paperwork and stuff for those nurses doing PSP to complete. So it just helps guide you through that, what bits and pieces you need to submit. So it's quite helpful. On the other hand, if you're a nurse that doesn't need to do your PSP, just sort of ignore those pink boxes and just do the course as normal. So just a little walk through then. So module 1 is welcome back. So we've got a nice video there from Julie Dugmore, the Director of Veterinary Nursing, sort of welcoming nurses back to practice. We've got a little reminder here on regulation. So we've got a nice interaction there on just reminding basically about how nurses are regulated, just on a little refresher there. We've also got some information on Schedule 3 as well, and definitions of supervision, just as a reminder. Some nurses might feel a bit nervous going back into practice and not remember exactly what can be delegated to them, etc. So that's just a good reminder there. And then we've got a section on confidence and self-esteem and an activity there. So module 2, this is all about mentorship. So if you're doing a PSP, you need to have a mentor in place. But even if you're not, it's a really good idea to kind of identify someone in the practice that you're going back into to be your mentor. So we've got some really great resources there on mentorship and also some communication and team working as well. So that's a really useful one. Module 3, so this one's got some great downloads and things in that you can use. So basically, even though none of our courses on the Academy are clinical, they're all non-clinical. But what this will do is this will help you kind of identify those areas that you need to kind of get up to speed on. So for example, for me, I haven't been in practice for 7 years. If I was to go back now, I'd be a bit nervous, you know, with anesthesia, things like that. So yeah, it's just kind of identifying those areas and planning your development. So we've got some good downloads and things that that you can use to to facilitate that and work with your mentor. Module 4, this is just a reminder about CPD, so CPD requirements, reflection, and we've also put a bit in there about evidence-based veterinary medicine and QI as well. Then we've got Module 5, which is the wellbeing module, so very important topic for our professions. There's some nice resources in there, some MMI resources as well, and just some tips for kind of maintaining that work-life balance. And then the last module is a sort of summary module. So this kind of guides you through the next steps. So if you're doing a PSP, what you need to submit, completing that. And then for nurses not doing the PSP, we've just got some information on 1CPD and just some final thoughts there. So yeah, that's our nurse return one. We've just got some additional support and further learning resources there as well. Any questions about nurse return before I move on to our vet return course? No? Okay. So vet return is actually not quite launched yet. It's launching early next week. So you're going to get a little sneak preview of vet return. So vet return, obviously, as the name suggests, is for our vets returning to clinical practice after a break. There are also some aspects in there that might be relevant for non-clinical roles as well. And we've also kind of interwoven the vet GDP into this as well. So vet GDP is mandatory if you've been off the UK practicing register for a period of 5 years or more. So this does touch on that. It gives a bit more information about vet GDP in here. And then we also have our vet GDP graduate induction course on the academy as well. So should that be relevant to any vets that are returning. So as I said, this one is brand new, launching early next week, and this was developed with Tash in the Advancement of Professions team. This one is 3 hours long and it's split into 6 modules. So the framework is essentially very similar to the nurse return course, but obviously targeted for our veterinary surgeons. So we've got a welcome back video from Linda Belton, the president of the RCVS. We've also got some information on vet GDP should it be relevant to that particular veterinary surgeon. We've got some really good practical tips for returning. So yeah, just some tips there to have a look through. Again, a bit on confidence and self-esteem. And this is probably my favourite part of the course. We have got these videos. I can see Rob on the call has contributed to this, so thank you again, Rob. Some videos of vets who have returned, and the 2 vets that we have on here returned after quite a while. I think one was sort of 12 years, the other one 14, something like that. So quite a while out of practice, and then their mentors as well. So that's really useful. I think it gives some really good kind of real life stories about people returning. So yeah, so that's really good. And I think quite inspiring for vets that are returning. Module 2, again, this is similar to the nurse return one, so it's all about your development. And whilst there's no clinical information in there, it does, give you that those resources to help kind of plan your what you need to sort of brush up on, planning your development and using SMART goals, etc. So that's really useful. Module 3, again, mentorship. So if a vet is completing the vet GDP, they will have a mentor in practice, obviously their vet GDP advisor, or even, like I said, even if you're not doing vet GDP, it's good to have that person in practice to support your return. Module 4, again, is just some information on well-being there, sort of getting that achieving that work-life balance and some good resources in there. Module 5 is basically just a reminder about the role of the RCVS, reminder about regulation, Schedule 3, so what you can be delegating to your nurses, and also quite useful some updated prescribing guidance. So if you were last in practice before September 2023, the new undercare guidance So we've summarised the key changes in there, and also some information about the cascade as well. And then the last module is just a reminder about CPD and next steps. And then we've got just linked to some other courses on the Academy that may be useful for vets who are returning. So yeah, that's about it. If anyone's got any questions, let me know, or you can pop it in the chat. Or you can always email us. I'll put our email address in the chat as well, academy@rcvs.org.uk, if you've got any questions. And as I said, Vet Return will be launching early next week. We've got some communications to put out around it, so on social media and things like that. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out.
Well, there's one in the chat there actually, which I think Tasha just answered. Sue said,
right.
how do people who are not on the register access the course? Is it open access?
Yeah, so if you're not on the register, you can, I think, Tash, did we say to contact registration, or you can contact the Academy and we can sort out access for you. It's not a problem.
Yeah, that's great. And I have to say, very excited about the Vet Return course. That looks fantastic, and I will be pointing my my vet in the direction to have a little look at that. So thanks very much for that. And just to say, I have to say, I had a great experience with the registry team as well. They've been, my vet was, we were both very unsure about how easy this process was going to be, and the registration team really helped support us through it. And it was a little bit daunting to start with, but actually it just seems to be a really nice way of structuring the return to work. So I think any good boss would be wanting to put some stuff in place so that you have, some aims and some goals. But this really helped us just structure it. It was more of an aid than a sort of hurdle to get over, which I thought was fantastic. So yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, and something else, sorry, I forgot to mention is obviously these courses are great for the mentors that are supporting these vets and nurses back into practice as well. So yeah, not only the returners themselves, but the mentors supporting them.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Well, thanks very much, Charlotte. That's really helpful. If anybody else has got any questions, but we're going to go into, we're going to have a few minutes now just for some general questions and answers. So if anybody has got any questions, I don't know if Rob, I could see you in the interview there. Do you want to sort of say anything, any feedback that you've got from this point of view? I'm afraid your face is on my screen, so I'm going to ask for any feedback you've got of, about this return to work.
No, I'd agree with everything that people said. I particularly think the discussion about honesty, so people on both sides, of the employer and the potential returning person, being honest about what they need and what they can offer. Having a grown-up conversation about what's possible and what's not possible. I think sometimes where it goes wrong is people have a really long list of requirements, and that never works. You can have probably one or two things realistically that you can insist on, and after that you've got to be willing to flex. I think that's sometimes where that goes wrong.
Yeah.
But people are, I think increasingly people are really keen to try and make return to the profession, particularly clinical practice, work.
Yeah.
So they're a lot more minded to be supportive and encourage people to come back. And it is a really great thing. I've personally experienced it quite a few, and it's amazing watching people come back. It's a really, really satisfying thing to be part of.
Thank you, Rob. No, I completely agree. I think, for me, I got a really super experienced vet out of it, which, I definitely benefited. It wasn't me just being benevolent and kind. I got something really good out of it. And it's really interesting. One of the flexible things that my vet asked, they were still doing a sort of financial job, and they needed the first one day off every at the beginning of every month to do some financial stuff. So I was like, I'm sure we can make that work. So that's a really interesting one. Rob, we've got another one in the chat. Thanks very much for your contribution there, Rob. Do vet returners have to do all the modules on the Vet GDP if they use it? So I'm happy. Does one of the RCVS team want to reply to that, or do you want me to reply to that?
I was going to say I probably need my colleagues from Vet GDP to answer that one. Obviously, it's not a specific academy one.
That's fine. No, I'm happy
Yeah.
to be fair, because I looked at that with my vet. So
Oh, fab. Thank
so when you're
you.
doing, yeah, no, it's fine. So when so the Vet GDP has a series of EPAs, which is entrustable professional activities, and what we did with my team member is there's a whole long list of them, but you go through and pick out the ones that are relevant to the job. So I work in a shelter setting, so there was going to be certain things that weren't relevant to my shelter vet. So we picked out the ones that were relevant and have used those as the EPAs that we're going to go through and that we're going to focus on. That's great. Anybody else got any other questions on that? Yeah, Sue, so a vet who wasn't operating could just do medical EPAs. That's absolutely correct. Yeah. And then Letitia's asked, do the vets from outside the UK that just registered with the RCVS also have to do the Vet GDP module? I have to say, Letitia, I'm not really sure on that one. That's not my field of expertise. Is anybody from the RCVS able to answer that one? If not, then we can we'll make sure we reply to you offline on that one, Letitia, if that's all right.
I'm quite happy to come in on that as
Tosh.
a former member of the registration team. Looking at the registration of overseas vets was not within my remit, but within the remit of my colleagues. And to my knowledge, that's not a requirement if you are coming in as an experienced vet from your home country. But certainly we can get formal confirmation from the appropriate people and have that sent over. Very happy to do that.
Yeah. Looking at that resource as well, that vet return resource, I think it would be useful for other people coming in. I feel that I probably ought to look at it as well and just see it. It sounds like it's got some really good refreshers on there of what people need to know at the moment.
Can I just come in,
Great.
Louise? I think
Yeah, of
the other
course.
thing to remember is that the Vet GDP, whatever form you take it, it's about having that honest conversation about which EPAs are appropriate, but also don't regard it as a barrier to get across. This is something that is there to ensure that you're more successful when you do return, and actually you're more likely to stay in the profession when you're there. So it's certainly not, this is not like another exam to get passed so that you can then start practicing again. This is something that is there to, specifically designed to help you and be more fulfilled and be more successful when you do return.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim. Any other questions out there? Feel free if anybody wants to put a hand up and ask a question as well. We can go old school on this if you want. That's great. Right, with that then, what I'm going to do is ask the panel just to give me a sort of take home. So, you know, why do you think people should return to the profession? What would be your top tips for returning? So, Kit, do you want to start us off? What would be your final words of wisdom on this?
Thank you. I would say there is a role out there for you. If you came into the profession, if you did your degree for the reasons or that most people are here for, working with people, working with animals, helping people, there is a role for you. And it's being honest with yourself about what that role might look like, and then kind of making that search to find that role. And I think people have far more skills than they often realize, and actually taking that moment to reflect on what skills do I have. Also, depending on where you are in your life, what stress can I cope with? So it may be for the start that you want to do a role within the profession which doesn't really push you outside your comfort zone very much, but as you come back and other things change, you want to push yourself outside your comfort zone and grow. But I think, again, having that self-conversation, knowing what you're trying to achieve is so important. I'm talking not from because I do it. I feel I should do it more. But I think as I think Lauren came in with saying, that this is a really important part of getting to the place that you want to be, doing the role that really suits you.
Lovely, thank you, Kit. Lauren, give me some final words of wisdom then.
I think for me, coming back into the profession isn't something you can do on your own. So it's always about finding your network, and that is, yeah, your mentor in practice, but it's also just reconnecting with people that you graduated with or people you used to work with to trade horror stories and all that dark humor that we all exist on, don't we? It's about attending some events, picking up some CPD. The more that you invest in the profession, the more you'll get back. And I think we should, yeah, the more we can get people to do that, even when they're thinking about coming back, the more success people will have.
Fabulous, love it. Sally, final words of wisdom. And we've also got a Slido up here as well for you to join in. So what's the one thing that you would always bring back to you back to this field? So Sally, give me some final words of wisdom.
Well, I've absolutely loved coming back to nursing, and I've got my enthusiasm for just the client relationships and doing a job that I loved from many, many years ago. And I would encourage anybody to come back, especially, if they are coming even towards retirement age. I don't have the enthusiasm to go back up to doing management or anything like that. I just want to enjoy my job again. And that is the most important thing to me.
Yeah. Thank you, Sally. And Tim, for you, final words of wisdom on this one, please.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like going last because everyone said kind of what I was going to say. But I mean, it's fundamentally flexibility and actually just recognizing that perhaps whether it's going back into clinic or coming back to the profession more widely, understanding that the range of jobs, different roles could be quite different to what they were when you left. And that would include, what your clinical role might look like. But equally, as I said before, think about other areas that you might not have thought about in terms of academia, etc., where there are so many different roles. There's so many opportunities for those of us. We all became vets because we're so passionate about doing the right thing for animals and that sort of thing. And trying to remember that and think back to your teenage self and think, right, how can I use what I've learned, what I've gained over the years in a slightly different way? Because there are going to be many, many different ways you can do that now than there might have been 10, 15 years ago.
Great, thank you, Tim. Not sure, going back to my teenage self, I wasn't very well behaved then, so that's it's a good thing. Thank you, everybody. If there's any further questions, what's the best place to go to if we've got further questions on this, Ankarad? Is it VetGDP at RCVS, or is there any other places where you'd like to point people towards to contact us?
Absolutely. So if you are a vet or an employer of potential vets who are looking to return, then the VetGDP email address has gone in the chat a couple of times, but we'll send it out on email afterwards. And if you are a vet nurse looking to return, then we've also got the vet nurse information there. And Charlotte has also put the Academy email address in there as well, so that you can have access to all of that information. If you've got any other queries, then the registration team would be more than happy to help. And if they are not the right people, then they will find you the right people to answer your question. They are all wonderful individuals who are really keen to make sure that you get the right information and that you can be supported to come back, or to support people to come back. So please do talk to them. They don't mind, even if it's I'm not sure just right now, but what might I have to do in sort of 6 months' time? They will give you all of the information and they'll talk you through all of the bits and pieces. On the website, there are some really useful flowcharts and FAQs. So there is that information there if you prefer to do that. And equally, if you just prefer to communicate over email, if there's a time zone difference or time zone due to small people difference, then that's also an option. And those email addresses are always monitored, and people come back very quickly to you. We will have presence at all of the major events. So we'll be at BBA Live in a couple of weeks, and then throughout the autumn we'll be at the autumn shows. So if people do want to come and have a chat with any of us, then you're very welcome to do that. But equally, we can take your information and get you people to contact you directly if that's also something that you would like. So the long and the short is talk to us. We'd really love to help. I don't know if many people know this, but once people come off the register, we can't contact them. So as much as we would love to keep in touch with you, we can't. So please keep in touch with us, and then we can make sure that you've got the latest up-to-date information. But we hope that this has given some people a bit more confidence to think about returning. And we would love to hear your feedback on the new vet return course, as that one is brand new, and we're hoping that will really help.
So, Carrot, I think there's a Workforce Ambitions Revisited Eventbrite page as well, which I think if somebody is able to put that up in the chat. So if people want to go back and look at these. Are there any other events coming up at the moment, Anne Carrot, or was this the last one in the series?
No, we're actually doing them slightly out of order, because we wanted to make sure that we did some of the topics that were a bit more seasonally appropriate. So we thought we would do this one earlier. So this is actually the first one of the actual ambitions. So next week we've got GP, and looking at the value of the GP career, which we hope will be quite an exciting one. Mostly because we want people to consider all of the different routes that are available, because I know our speakers here today have really extolled the different options that are available to those people who want a different career route or just want something different right now, something that will suit them. So the GP session will be coming up. We've got our dedicated vet nurse one. So all of the details Tash has put there on the Eventbrite page. So you can sign up to one, you can sign up to all, but they will all be recorded. So if the time isn't convenient to you, don't worry. You'll get the email from us, but also it will be on the web page. And I will just take an opportunity to plug the fact that we are at BVA Live in a couple of weeks, and Tash and I will be running a workshop looking at workplace culture. So do come and join us for that. It's the last slot on the Friday, so we might have to bring some chocolate in to persuade people to come and join us.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much to the RCVS team for organising this. So really wanted to thank everybody who's turned up today, to all my lovely panel members. Thank you very much. Is there a post-event survey that will be sent out as well, Anne Carrot? So we love a survey, don't we? So thank you everybody for attending. I'm off now to go and run a kids club. So this is portfolio career, as you say. So thank you very much, everybody, and very nice to see you all. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.